So AI is everywhere right now, but as we know in financial services, it's not just all about innovation. We've got to think about the security and staying compliant. Okay, so today we're diving into the world of large language models and AI more broadly, and kind of AI powered services. So just asking the big question really, how safe and secure are they really? And what do operational leaders in financial services really need to know before they kind of jump straight in with their teams? So I suppose the first question, let's take a step back, right? Start from the basics, keep it simple. What exactly is a large language model, and who are the big players in the space right now?
So a large language model, it's the kind of most common one that you've heard of is ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the main big one. But these large language models, the kind of other main players are Facebook with Llama, there's Claude with Anthropic, Grok with X. They are the main players in this space. Models require a tremendous amount of energy, power, graphics in order to make. So it's not a situation where everyone is making up their own model. These LLMs, as these kind of core LLMs, ChatGPT, Llama, Claude, they're the kind of the main LLMs that we talk about or we think about when we say LLM.
And how do they fit into like the broader AI landscape? So wider AI services?
Yeah, I think it's really important because I think a misconception is you might see some AI application, something.ai that does a particular thing. They typically don't, or it'd be very unusual that they have their own model that they built, their own LLM that they've built. They're just kind of tying into one of these existing large language models like Anthropic or OpenAI or Facebook's model.
Okay, so from our perspective at Lamware, what are we seeing in terms of firms starting to use these models? Are there any preferred models or any particular use cases that we're kind of coming across now?
Maybe a couple of years ago, when it was still new, the options really were only ChatGPT through OpenAI or Microsoft Copilot, which uses ChatGPT via OpenAI. But this is very much, they're kind of generic models. They're there to suit kind of every kind of general purpose. But what we've started to see now is more and more players enter into this and building up these more tailored AI applications. So we had a lot of clients that were interested in using AI, got to these kind of more general purpose AIs and maybe found that it didn't exactly do what they wanted to do and was potentially stuck with it. But now a lot more AI applications are now available. The kind of options for using AI has kind of exploded. So we are seeing clients wanting to use maybe more of these specialist AI applications.
And these specialist applications, again, going back to the ecosystem and wider landscapes, these are kind of AI powered services that again perhaps use one of those various large language models, but really they've created this to perform a specific function or for a specific use case. Okay, all right, well, I want to spend too much time talking about really the business drivers. I want to just talk, unfortunately, about the risks. Okay, so if you're looking to adopt and deploy and use these models, what are the kind of key security and compliance considerations that you would be thinking about and you would be looking at?
The way we look at security and compliance for AI is not too dissimilar to SaaS applications, so web applications that have been around for years. So the types of things we look for are whether they're using encryption, MFA, the kind of very basics. As we get more to AI, some of the things that we would look at as well for general web application or business application become even more critical. So the kind of main one here is kind of confidentiality or privacy. So what happens when you're uploading your data into these applications or into these models. Where's your data going? Where's the data residency?
Yeah.
And how are they going to use that data? You'd be surprised how many of these kind of newer AI applications don't set out what it is that happens. So that's probably kind of one of the main ones that we look at, and there's a lot of challenges around that. And it's also just not, maybe you want to use an AI application that takes meeting notes, for example. It's not just kind of what they do with the data, because they're using one of these other kind of LLMs, ChatGPT or Llama or whatever. What happens when it then goes downstream? What's the kind of what's happening with all that information that you're uploading to it? And then there's a number of other things that we look at, like features. How often are features introduced to the AI is changing incredibly fast. New features are dropping into products kind of weekly or monthly, and being able to control then what features are kind of turned on and enabled. Because a new AI feature, for example, being able to share the contents of your chat prompt to a colleague might sound useful, but it might also enable somebody to share that to the world or public, and being able to lock that down is really key.
Going back to like a traditional SaaS environment, you're saying the pace of change, new features within SaaS compared to AI is actually a lot faster, so it's harder to keep track of everything new. And there's kind of security and compliance implications that go alongside that. So it's a little bit like a moving target.
Yes.
Okay, so let's focus on the big models, the open AIs, Anthropics, those ones. And, I think you have had a look, unlike probably 99.9% of people, through some of the terms and conditions around them. Love to know, it's like the $1 million question, really. And again, focusing it from our world, which is working within financial services, how do they stack up, in terms of the kind of security provisions and guarantees and controls and compliance kind of provisions?
So I've read through the Microsoft Copilot terms and conditions. It's a bit of dry reading, but it has everything in there that you kind of want, expect, and need, that kind of clarification around what they are or not doing with your data, all the controls that they put in place, and the kind of standard Microsoft, or how that works in the Microsoft ecosystem. If you contrast that with OpenAI, which is, they're both using effectively the same model, ChatGPT. OpenAI is a bit more difficult because we've got these several flavors or license types, and each one has a kind of different, provides a different control, or one allows for data residency, others don't. It becomes really blurred and really difficult. So a good example with OpenAI is that you can get their top tier enterprise license type, which gives you data residency control, but only allows you to store in an entire region. So you could say, I want all of the data I upload to be stored in Europe, but you can't say I want it to be stored in specifically in the UK. So there's all these little caveats with OpenAI. But at least OpenAI and some of the other ones are kind of similar to OpenAI. They have that information, but a huge proportion of AI applications don't even have the information. They might have terms and conditions which might say, this is how you're allowed to use our product. You can't send us 1 million requests in one go, that type of thing. But they don't have the security information needed in order to properly assess the risk of what happens when I use it.
Again, just going back a little bit to the pace of change, it's changing obviously at an increasing rate, incredible speed. So obviously they're pouring so much time and effort and money into developing these models and the wider associated AI-powered services. And what are you seeing in terms of how the different vendors are prioritizing the delivery of new features and developing the actual product versus the kind of security and the compliance considerations?
Microsoft has definitely concentrated on all of the compliance tooling and making sure the way they've configured their AI means that your data, there's a level of trust that you can have with them that your data is not going to be used to potentially the detriment of new flashy AI features. But it's definitely a theme. The kind of compliance tools are not kind of the interesting or flashy or the tools that people kind of want to use. So they are focusing on features and all of this other compliance tools and all this other information around security is either typically not there. There's a bit of an afterthought. But the other kind of main players like OpenAI have definitely started to get up there on kind of a similar footing to Microsoft. But my view is they've probably been forced to in order to enable financial services firms and other types of industries to be able to then use that platform.
Okay. What have we seen so far out there in terms of high profile kind of security incidents, or any data breaches or any disasters, going back to some of the risks that we just talked about using these platforms? Is it early days, or is it now, as the pace of change is just ramping up, so is in turn the amount of incidents that we're seeing out there?
It's still early days, but it is a ticking time bomb. I think we've all seen or heard of those anecdotes of somebody, they turned the AI meeting notes on and everyone joined, some people left, and then they talked about the people that left, and then everyone got the notes from the AI. So there's lots of those types of things happening. But very recently, in the last few weeks, we have seen a kind of a more dramatic security incident with AI, where a third-party AI chatbot that you could hook into your Salesforce application, and you kind of gave it access to all your Salesforce data, and then it could use that to respond to questions internally or to clients. That was compromised and gave the attacker access to a number of companies' entire Salesforce data. So that's probably kind of what more recent memory where I've seen a big security incident.
Just going into that in a bit more detail, again, going back to like these SaaS platforms have been around for a long time. Add-ins, third parties, security issues with those third-party add-ins, again, quite frequent. What is it about what's happening with these add-ins that are AI enabled, that actually means that the breaches are more serious or have a greater impact? What is it about those AI powered add-ins that you need to be mindful of?
I think it's the scope of access they need.
Right.
So the rule of thumb is the kind of more information or more text information you can throw at these AIs, the kind of better it's going to be in its response. So the scope of access that it has to these systems is usually kind of quite broad in order to get a better response. And we've seen this ourselves, where the clients asked, can we use this AI tool? We've dug in. Maybe they don't have much security information, but they've said, we need this access. And then we see the access, and it's basically everything. And we're like, well, hold on a minute here. This could be quite dangerous. So that's why the kind of level of access
and the amount of data it needs access to, is much greater than historically would be the case with these traditional add-ins.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So let's wrap this up with, let's say, a little scenario. Which is hopefully, some of our audience can relate to. Let's say you're a COO in a fund. You've got one of your team members doing some brilliant work using one of the models or an AI-powered service, but you're not sure it's the right one from a security and compliance point of view. What's your advice to that person? Who is, do you see, really delivering something innovative with the team, but you're concerned, about what's going on with the security and compliance. What's your kind of advice to that scenario?
Well, to be thinking of that's a good first step, because you should be worried. There's so many unknowns. It's really tricky. I think where we are at the moment and now, which that's not necessarily going to be forever, you have kind of two options. One is you use one of these kind of more established AI companies like Microsoft, which has all of those compliance features, all the things that you would expect and need, but you compromise on that maybe feature or that thing that an AI application could do specifically. That's an option.
That's an option, yeah.
Or you limit what data you are putting into whatever the AI is that you're using. So maybe you take the view of, we can use this AI application, but no company data should be uploaded into that.
I get it. But let's take a scenario where, let's say the person within this fund is using, say, something, a Perplexity.io, or maybe just ChatGPT, and they're not using like Microsoft Copilot, which is more secure and all the rest of it. And they're saying, but the model's not as fast, it's not as good. Does that make sense? How would you persuade them, to kind of rethink coming back to use something like Copilot, which has all these more security guarantees and guardrails?
It definitely is a case that those that are stronger on compliance and security do tend to be behind in terms of the quality of response and quality of the product, such as OpenAI, maybe Claude with Anthropic, or Perplexity. But this is it's just a matter of time. So Microsoft could be a few months out in terms of being on the bleeding edge of functionality, but it will get there. So you could compromise on, maybe it's not the tool that you want to use, and maybe accept that you use one of these other ones that are more stronger around security and compliance, but that you might be a few months away from being on top of.
Again, so it's just a lag. It's a delay. And you're talking months, not years. So you just have to be patient. Okay, great.